So welcome to another edition of Career Conversations. I'm Herda-Rapp, the campus executive at UW-Stevens Point at Wausau. And in this installment, we're going to talk about advocacy services. And joining me, we have Pam, Steffen-Karls, and Jessica Lind. And I'll let them tell us a little bit about themselves first before we jump into some of our questions. So Pam, do you maybe want to get us started?
Sure. I work for the Marathon County District Attorney's Office in the Victim Witness Program. I have been serving victims in the Victim Witness Program for 22 years, and we provide services to all crime victims in Marathon County.
Awesome. And Jessica?
Sure. So I work with the women's community here in Marathon County, which is a domestic violence and sexual assault victim service agency. I've been with the women's community for 25 years, and I am the Sexual Assault Victim Services Program Coordinator. I also serve as a campus advocate at UWSP at Wausau.
Yes, you do. So Jess, I'll start with you with the first question. So when and how did you discover your purpose? How did you become interested in this career choice?
Sure. Well, mine is kind of an interesting story. When I was attending University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, I became really involved on campus as a resident assistant, and I started getting training in working with sexual assault victims. And so I kind of got introduced to the field early on. I started going through some training through the counseling services department on campus to respond to after-hour calls at the hospital. So that got me really interested. And then as a resident assistant, I came across a number of people who had been impacted either before they came to college, or maybe they found themselves in an unhealthy dating relationship, or something happened to them when they were on campus. And so I wanted to keep getting more and more training so that I could help people. So that kind of led me to the path I'm in now. When I moved back home to the Wausau area, there was some job openings here at the women's community, and I thought this could be a perfect fit because I had already started a little bit of training.
Can I ask, what major did you go off to college thinking you were going to major in?
Well, very different than what I ended up with. I actually was a physical therapy major. So I had switched from physical therapy to sociology with a minor in psychology.
The best major of all.
Right.
I'm a sociologist.
So I just fell in love with sociology and psychology and helping others and just understanding people and behaviors. And so it just was a perfect fit.
Very good. Great. Pam, how about you? How did you discover your purpose?
Well, I, like Jessica, did not start out in this field when I started college. I started out in business management, and along the way just started finding classes that I really was interested in, and they seemed to be in the social work area. So I got my degree at UW-Whitewater in social work. I did my internship at CAP Services in Stevens Point, and ended up getting hired on by CAP Services in their Head Start program. CAP Services also has the Family Crisis Center, and I found a volunteer opportunity while I was working there with the sexual assault program in Stevens Point. So I became a volunteer at the sexual assault program in Stevens Point and really found that I enjoyed advocacy services, working with victims, and ended up moving to the Wausau area. When I was in the process of moving to Wausau, I found that there was a job open at the women's community. So I started out as a shelter nighttime staff person. So I worked overnights at the shelter, in the old shelter, many years ago. And I ended up becoming an advocate at the women's community. And I worked there for 5 years before I got hired on at Marathon County. So it really, for me, was just kind of finding things that I enjoyed, finding classes that I enjoyed, and finding volunteer opportunities that kind of led me down this road.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question about how you prepared for this career path and this line of work. It sounds like it's that combination of volunteering, but also coursework, and then maybe a series of, maybe not for Jess, but a series of job moves that kind of prepared you in different ways?
Yeah, I think I definitely left myself open to opportunities. Through my internship, I was able to experience different programs and different agencies through Stevens Point. So I was really trying to learn about as many of the services as possible. And that helped me find the volunteer opportunity that finally led me to getting into the victim services field. And when I became an advocate, I really enjoyed the legal aspect of it. And that's how I ended up at the district attorney's office when a position became open there.
Mm-hmm. I think that's instructive, because I think students often don't think about, they think about where they want to end, but they don't necessarily see the path to that ending point. And there probably, in both of your cases, there are probably multiple paths to the kind of position that you're in now.
Something that was interesting for me that I'll just add is through one of my women's studies courses, we had the opportunity to volunteer at a local domestic violence shelter in La Crosse. So I highly recommend that. It was really influential in the fact that I was interested in working in a place like this. So that gave me a taste. I worked with children during a support group when their parents were attending a support group. Then I was able to interact with the children, and I could meet the staff and really work with the children's advocate. And so when I initially started in this field, I thought, oh, I want to work with children. And so that's where I kind of started. And when I came back to the area, there was a family advocate position open. So my internship was at the Family Resource Center, working with children and the staff there to understand home visits, which ultimately helped me in the job I'm in now, because we do home visits now. So looking back, I think that there were some really great opportunities that kind of led me to this path. And so then through the years, then being promoted into the position I'm in now and more working with adults and doing more supervision, it's really transitioned through the years. So it was a great experience looking back.
I'm wondering what qualities or proficiencies you think someone would need to have to be successful in the fields in which you both work. Jess, do you want to get us started on that?
Sure. Well, I think when you're working in victim services, it's really important that you're non-judgmental and also that you're compassionate. You want to be empathetic and really just be willing to be flexible. Everybody's situation is so different and unique, and everybody responds to trauma in different ways. And so there isn't one way that someone's going to respond. So you need to be open-minded and flexible in working with people's emotions. And there's no timeline on healing. So I think that it's just really important that you are patient, that you give time for people to be the way that they need to be, and just really being there and being willing to listen. As a victim service provider, you really are doing more listening than you are doing talking. So it's a lot of listening, reflecting, and then also just providing information.
Mm-hmm. Pam?
And I agree with everything Jessica said. I think the listening is a huge asset for anybody in this field. And it's listening and learning about services that are available, because when you're talking with somebody, you never know what they may disclose to you, what they may confide in you about. And so knowing about other services, not just your own, is very important, so that when somebody discloses something to you, that you have at least somewhere that you can point them to. So I think it's really important for people in this field to be willing to learn about the agencies around them, the other services that are offered, and make those connections, so that when that happens, when somebody's in crisis, you can say, well, I can't help you with that, but I do know somebody that can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would imagine that for both of you, a lot of your work and in your offices, a lot of the work is directional, pointing people, connecting people to resources. Let me ask next, what does an average day on your jobs look like? In your current position, maybe not the night shift job that you worked, Pam, but in your current position, what does your average day look like? Pam, do you want to start?
Sure. So my average day will consist of new cases that come into the district attorney's office. We reach out and talk to victims about what it means now that the case is going through the court process. We take lots of calls from victims that are reaching out, wondering what's happening with cases. They may have struggles or frustrations about what's happening with the case. They may have concerns that they want relayed to the court about their case or their situation. We meet with victims that come into the office and talk through with them what it looks like if they have to testify, if they're going to have to go to court. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be in court with a jury trial. So we'll be working with those victims through the jury trial, sitting with them during testimony, other people's testimony. When they testify, we'll talk with them after, kind of debrief with them to see how they're doing after they testify. But every day is different. You never know what you're going to walk into and what new situation is going to be thrown your way. Even after 22 years of doing this job, there's something new every week that comes our way that you have to figure out. And we just, go into it going, we're going to do whatever needs to be done, whatever we can do, and try and figure it out. And that sometimes means calling an advocate at the women's community to come over and meet with somebody who may need shelter services, who may need support through doing a restraining order, something that we don't handle through the criminal aspect of the case. But we may still be there to help support them and connect them. And it's just talking with people. Some days it's just listening to them and listening to their concerns and their frustrations and their fears about what might happen with their case.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Jess? What does your average day look like?
Well, I would agree with Pam that there is not really an average day. And even when you think there might be, things can change pretty quickly, especially working in crisis intervention. So I would say it's very common that we might have a walk-in who comes in, and you might think that you might be working on some paperwork for the day, but then, a walk-in comes in and they need your attention. We take shifts answering our 24-hour crisis line. So we rotate shifts with that. We also rotate being on call for one full week at a time. So you might find yourself in the emergency department at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning for several hours for a domestic violence or sexual assault victim. Sometimes we're at court working with Pam over at Victim Witness, like she mentioned. We try to attend all of the court hearings surrounding domestic violence and sexual assault so that we can be an additional support to the district attorney's office as well as to victims. We also do assistance with filing restraining orders and attending divorce hearings. So we have a role within the civil legal system as well. And then we also do prevention education. So you might find us in a school doing prevention education, whether that's elementary through college. So we're working with our community partners, our system partners, really trying to provide resources for people in the community should they need them. So we do a lot of outreach, making sure that people know that we exist and how to find us. And then also in my role, I do write grants and do reports. So there are some administrative duties as well, especially working in a nonprofit. We are state, federal, and local funded. And so we do have to keep afloat. And those are important pieces of what we do here in order to keep our doors open.
Mm-hmm. Good. What advice would you give to someone who's considering entering this field or who's just starting their career in this field? Oh, yeah. Maybe Jess, since you're unmuted, we'll start with you.
Sure. I would say to start start volunteering, really just explore it. I absolutely love when people call and say, hey, can I come and talk to you about what you do? Or can I volunteer? Can I job shadow? Looking back, I wish I would have had more of those opportunities. I think that today, there's so many more opportunities than there were, when I was in college. And so I really encourage people to just come and spend a day at an advocacy agency like ours. Really just get a taste of what it's like, or start volunteering, consider doing an internship. A lot of college students will just do one semester at an agency like ours, and I actually encourage both semesters at an agency like ours, because by the time you get comfortable and get training, you're just ending your first semester. So I always encourage, even a 2-semester internship in an agency like ours to really get a good feel for what it's like.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Pam? What advice would you offer?
I agree completely with everything Jess said. I think leave your options open. Really get out there and start talking to people, ask around, observe. And, it is something that it's a big decision. So just spend some time. And if something doesn't feel right, that's okay. Try a different opportunity. United Way is a great place. They may have some opportunities out there to volunteer where you can get connected with agencies. And I think that's exactly what people should do, is just really try out some different things and try out very different things, just because you never know what might be the one thing that that strikes your interest. So.
The social workers, when we interviewed them, basically said the same thing. Their advice was take some risks. Try an area of, there's so many different areas of social work. So try one. If you don't like it, you can, take a different direction. And because there are so many different opportunities, but you won't know if you like something or if you don't like something unless you try it. And the one talked about, I really didn't like this, this one area, but I wouldn't have known it if I hadn't tried it. So good. What's one thing that you wish someone would have told you when you were early in your career exploration stages? One thing that you wish somebody would have told you or advised you of, just in general. Anybody want to start?
I can start. I think looking back, I really wish that someone would have told me just to really develop some good resiliency skills early on. Coming into this job as a new, freshly out of college, I thought I knew a lot, but I really didn't, looking back. And so I think that if someone would have prepared me a little bit more for the traumatic stories I was going to hear, or all of the, hard cases, or the difficult things that you hear in this work. I kind of wish that we would have had a better resiliency skill, whether it's workshops or on the job training. And we have that now, of course. But looking back, I kind of wish we would have had something like that. So when you do enter a victim services field, it's very important that people know that you're purposely exposing yourself to trauma in this work. And so having healthy coping strategies and good resiliency skills in victim services is so critical to keep being able to do this work. Pam and I are unusual folks that we've been doing this work for 20 plus years. That's not very common. So I think it's key that people develop that. So had I been given that advice, fortunately I'm still here, but had I been giving that advice, I think that would have helped prepare me for what I was about to, hear.
Mm-hmm. That's really a good point about purposely exposing yourself to trauma over and over again. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, you do need some good coping skills. How about you, Pam?
I think just the importance of relying on coworkers and having that backup, that being able to talk through things, that it's okay that you're not going to know everything right away. And that, I mean, still to this day, I rely on my coworkers to talk through situations. And that's not a bad thing. Having that good support system within your agency is huge. And, you know, everybody can contribute to that, even the new person coming fresh out of college. I love having the interns in our agency and just seeing that fresh look at things, because it helps me really evaluate the way we're dealing with situations, policies that we're dealing with. So everybody can contribute, and just because you're new, it doesn't mean that that your viewpoint isn't important. And having that open communication within the program, within coworkers, is just so valuable. So just being able to go in and knowing that asking questions isn't a bad thing, being new isn't a bad thing, that's so helpful for everybody within the program.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else that you'd want to tell us about your career path and how you discovered your purpose? Either of you? I do have like one closing question, and it's a more general one. If you could go back in time and have a conversation with your younger self, what would you tell yourself?
To trust your instincts, to go with your gut. And if something doesn't feel right for you, it's not.
I would say that it's okay you don't know everything, and that you should keep playing and laughing and having fun and not be so serious.
Were you very serious
Yes.
and you didn't have enough fun?
I had some fun, but I think I just was so serious and felt like I had to know everything. You know, as a new advocate, I wanted to know everything, and you know, and you don't. Really, this job is you learn it as you go. You have the foundations, of course, through your coursework, but you learn on the job, and so you don't know that until you know that. And I'm still learning every single day. So I have to remind myself, you don't have to know everything, and just keep playing and having fun. That keeps you strong in this work.
Good advice. Okay, well, thank you very much for sharing your stories and your experiences and your career paths. And I want to thank the viewers for their suggestions for career conversations, and we'll take future suggestions for future career conversations too. Those can be emailed to career.conversations@uwsp.edu. So thank you both for this conversation. It's been really helpful, I think, to students.
Thank you for the invitation.
All right.
Thank you so much.